6, 5.
Well, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Warrington Borough Council's Cabinet on Monday, the 9th of November. In terms of the Cabinet members, we're all present tonight. That's myself, Councillor Bowden, Councillors Guthrie, Higgins, Jennings, Knowles, McLaughlin, Mitchell, Mundry, Patel and Smith. And we're also joined by Council Officers Linton Green, Matthew Cumberbatch, Kath Jones and Steve Park. This meeting tonight will be broadcast live for public viewing, and so I welcome everyone that's watching online. In terms of the business, I can confirm that the part 1 element of this meeting is just about to commence and it will be publicly broadcast. Items in part 2 of our agenda are confidential and they'll not be open to the public or to the press. So when the part 1 agenda business is complete, then the broadcast will cease at that point. I can confirm also that everybody has received a copy of the agenda and the reports and have a copy in front of them. And they've also received an update to our forward plan and an amended schedule for outside body appointments under agenda item 4. They've also received an update to the recommendations on agenda item 12, and that will be covered when that item is discussed during the agenda. I note in terms of the agenda, the status of items 13 and 20. I propose to withdraw those from tonight's agenda if we're all in agreement.
Agreed, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the first item, Code of Conduct Declarations of Interest. Any member who has an interest in any of the items needs to declare that no later than when the item is discussed. I've been notified of 2 declarations tonight. So first off, Councillor Judith Guthrie, please.
Yes, can I declare an interest in items 12 and 19 in part 2? I'm declaring a non-pecuniary interest because my husband is the Vice Chair of Livewire. Thank you.
OK, thank you, Councillor Guthrie. And also Councillor Matt Smith, please.
Thank you. I'd also like to declare an interest in items 12 and 19. I was formerly chair of the Culchith Library Working Group and I'm currently on the committee for the Friends of Culchith Library. Both of these positions are unpaid and there's no other financial benefit, and I would not benefit financially from the decision being taken. Therefore, I intend to remain for the discussion and the vote. Thank you. OK, thank you for that. That's clear. For the record, I'll also notify that Councillors McLaughlin, Higgins and Jennings are observing members on the boards of Culture Warrington and Livewire CIC. Clearly, they're not in a position of influence or paid for those roles, but in the interest of transparency, I'm making that statement for the exact same items 12 and 19. Moving on then to the minutes of the last meeting, item 2. Are we happy to take those as a true record?
Agreed, Chair.
OK, thank you. Item 3, Cabinet Decisions Forward Plan. Members have seen the forward plan as presented and they've been notified of an update to the forward plan in relation to a new item for January 2021. Are we happy that that's OK, that item?
We are, yes.
Yes, Chair.
OK, thank you. Moving on to item 4 then, Cabinet Appointments to outside bodies. We had our annual council meeting last Monday, and as is standard, we make a number of appointments to outside bodies. This first set under agenda item 4, Cabinet Appointments to outside bodies. You've seen the schedule, which is in the appendix. I have one addition to make to that, which relates to the Lymm Grammar School Trust. We had one vacancy for that particular body, and it's been proposed that David Nicholson becomes the council's second representative on that body. Mr Nicholson is involved with Lim School currently, and his appointment has been discussed and is supported by other parties. So with that amendment, I'll move the recommendation in section 9, sorry, to note these appointments and approve that schedule. Do I have a second for that?
Yes. Me.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Higgins has seconded, in which case move to the vote. Because we're doing this meeting online, then I'll go through members in order, and if they can clearly state whether they're for, against or abstain. So starting with myself, Councillor Bowden, for. Councillor Guthrie.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Jennings.
For.
Councillor Knowles.
For.
Councillor McLaughlin.
For.
Councillor Mitchell.
For.
Councillor Mundry.
For.
Councillor Patel.
For.
And Councillor Smith.
For.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Moving on then to agenda item 5, very similar to the last item. This report covers appointment to the Cabinet task groups for the 2020-21 year, and also the appointment of champions and ambassadors. Members will obviously appreciate that business of the council in terms of task groups has been limited during the COVID crisis. We're not proposing any changes to the makeup of those task groups. Membership is included in the appendices, and those groups will continue their work on a task and finish basis. We do have some champions, ambassadors, and that's noted in the table on section 7.3. I've had it confirmed that Janice Hayes is happy to remain as the council's heritage ambassador now that she is retired from Culture Warrington. In terms of practice, Councillor Tom Jennings was our young people's ambassador, but it's not really appropriate for a cabinet member to remain as a champion or ambassador. So obviously this report was written prior to Councillor Jennings' appointment to the cabinet, of which I forgot to congratulate him at the start of the meeting. And so in due course, I'll be seeking a replacement for Councillor Jennings as our young people's champion. On that basis, I'll move to section 13 and the recommendations as stated. Any comments or questions? No, in which case do I have a seconder for this report?
I'll second it, Russ.
Okay, thank you. It's been seconded by Councillor Guthrie. Same process in terms of voting then. Councillor Bowden, for. Councillor Guthrie.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Jennings.
For.
Councillor Knowles.
For.
Councillor McLaughlin.
For.
Councillor Mitchell.
For.
Councillor Mundry.
For.
Councillor Patel.
For.
And Councillor Smith.
For.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 6 then. Commissioning and procurement arrangements for mental health, learning disabilities, supported accommodation and day services, establishing a preferred supplier dynamic purchasing system. Councillor Knowles, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is another report that's coming to Cabinet regarding a dynamic purchasing system. So we've discussed and are familiar with the way a DPS works. In this case, it relates to a number of items relating to supported accommodation for people with severe mental health problems, complex needs, adults with a learning disability, day service opportunities for learning disability or mental health problems, individual service funds as well, and the proposed duration of the system is 10 years. The reason it's coming to us is that the Council's current contract regulations don't make provision for the operation of a DPS and require that decisions in excess of the key decision threshold have to be made by Cabinet. So there will be a number of individual lots, it's proposed, detailing specific services within this DPS, and they'll enable the Council to purchase adult social care services for individuals across supported accommodation and day services. The lots are all outlined in Appendix 2, so I don't propose to go through those here. The system will replace a number of existing council contracts, and of those, the complex mental health preferred supplier list expires at the 31st of March of next year. There are 16 organisations in there, 11 organisations providing care and support to 180 people. Large value to that, even though it's a small number of people, of almost £4 million. And the packages of care are funded either by the council or jointly by the council and Warrington CCG. So it's proposed that the system would replace the preferred supplier list and would become operational from the beginning of April of next year. Learning disabilities, there the service expires in July of next year with 4 main provider organisations, again supporting 180 individuals, and again a very large budget there of £6.5 million. When we come on to learning disabilities, day services and opportunities, that supports a larger number of people, 270 individuals, with a contract value of getting on for £2 million. So these are large services. The majority of the current supported housing services are either for long-term home for life services or short-term ones which are connected with recovery and reablement. And typically the council services are fully utilised. We've got an increasing level of demand and we've got increasing complexity in the people using services as set out in 3.4.4. The current contractual arrangements have worked well, but they don't really allow for new providers in the market to join the preferred supplier list. And both with regard to in-borough and out-of-borough placements, the dynamic purchasing system would make a much improved transparency of the contracting process. It's also envisaged that it'll better meet the needs of individuals and reduce admin. The services are fundamental to supporting the council in delivery of its statutory duties under the Care Act, the Mental Capacity Act and the Mental Health Act. So the current preferred supplier list and proposed future DPS would enable the council to secure services for every individual or group of individuals through undertaking a formal person-centred tender process, where the suppliers submit a tender together with the proposed cost, and then there's a robust evaluation process to determine which of those person-centred tenders delivers best value for money. So the advantages are that new suppliers are able to join the DPS at any time. It does operate like a framework agreement in that there are multiple providers using the same contract terms, but it's a much more flexible way of doing things. It increases capacity, choice and flexibility, and would be better prepared to meet the increasing demand and need for supported accommodation and day opportunities. It would improve access and choice for individuals and families and provide better outcomes by reducing the need for residential care, improving timely hospital discharge and accessing services that promote independence, wellbeing and reablement. Also enabling individuals to remain in Warrington rather than having to go out of borough. So it'll be more streamlined, there'll be better processes for ensuring value for money, a more person-centred approach with the tenders with greater openness and transparency, and also timeliness is really important. It means that contracts can begin sooner, which could, for example, help people to leave hospital more quickly, and also ensure that providers can be paid more quickly as they'll be on the list of preferred suppliers. The approach can also be combined with individual service funds, which again supports that personalisation and choice for individuals and the families who use these services. So as I said in the opening remarks, this is coming to Cabinet because it far exceeds the threshold of £250,000 that is required to be approved by Cabinet. And under the proposed new arrangements, which will begin from the 1st of April of next year, it's envisaged that the Director of Adult Social Care would be authorised to award those individual contracts under the DPS. As I've already mentioned, there are various lots as set out at 5.1 for different parts of this DPS. And a structured process has been established to review all the existing placements under the current arrangements, with a view to moving towards this person-centred tender process under the new system from next April. For the social work teams, for the individuals and families, the introduction of the DPS isn't anticipated to result in any immediate change to their current arrangements, and that's really important that there's continuity for the people who are already receiving services. So there is no increased forecasted cost or decrease of cost of the services. That's not what it's about. It's about flexibility and personalisation and value for money. The risk assessment is set out at 7, and as I've said, there really should be no changes of choice for current or future potential service users, as the expectation is that they would all join the DPS. The reasons for the recommendation are that the current contractual arrangements expire on the 31st of March with respect to mental health services and 31st of July 2021 with respect to learning disability. There's a requirement for the council to establish robust contracting and procurement arrangements to enable it to discharge its statutory duties from next April. The existing contracts will be largely unaffected, and the recommendation is to establish the DPS in line with the council's service requirements to ensure that there'll be sufficiency of supply, that the services continue to provide care and support, that the development and implementation of services can meet changing needs and service gaps, most importantly to ensure best value for the council and to ensure that the council can meet its statutory duties. So just moving on to the recommendation, the Cabinet's recommended to authorise officers to enter into a procurement arrangement to establish a dynamic purchasing system from next April, and that is in respect of supported accommodation for people with mental health problems, supported accommodation for adults with a learning difficulty, and the day opportunity services for people with learning disabilities and mental health problems, and that also we agree to delegate authority to the Director of Adult Social Care for the individual contracts. Any questions?
Thank you for that, Councillor Knowles, and obviously an important but quite complex topic, so thank you for your clear presentation. I propose to come to members in turn, if you can just indicate whether you've got any questions or not for Councillor Knowles. So I'll come to Councillor Guthrie first.
Yes, I really just want to say this is a really good report. It's really good to see our services are managed in the best possible way. Any service that can help patients leave hospital in a safe way and help their independence is a really good thing in my eyes anyway. And I fully support this report and can see the potential for success in the future. And I think it's really, really good to see how every aspect has been covered, you know, in this report. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that positive comment. Councillor Higgins, any questions or comments from you?
Nothing from me, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Jennings?
No comment from me, Chair.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, I just wanted to make a few comments. Thank you, Chair. As a lead member for housing, I've been able to go and visit some of the premises that we've been able to adapt to enable our residents with complex needs to come back into Warrington from outside placement. So this is a very valuable report that is really going to make a difference to people's lives. And I've seen those examples where we've really been able to help people realise their ambitions to be closer to their families, to have the independence that they can achieve given that whatever limitations they have. And what this means for residents that we serve is incalculable. And I was really struck by the examples in Appendix 3. Our commitment to people with disabilities is an important part of who we are as an administration. And I don't know if Appendix 3 is the real names of the people that we're looking at the examples, or whether they are names put into the report to protect people's anonymity. But I wanted to say that this is for James and Albert and Claire and Dorothy and Brian and Debbie, and for all those who are unnamed, who need our support to live a fulfilling and purposeful life. And I'm really pleased to support this report.
I have no comments to make, thank you, Chair.
Is anyone there?
I felt like I was suddenly bedeviled by poor internet for a moment.
Ross is speaking, but I can't hear. Oh, he's on mute.
Ross.
I'm just as bad as everybody else, aren't I? I apologise. The most common phrase of this last 7 months, you're on mute. No, I think we've lost Councillor Patel as well. He's just sent me a message saying he can't get back in at the moment. So people are being bedeviled by IT problems. So Councillor Smith, any comments or questions from you?
No questions. It's, as other people have said, it's clearly a very positive report. We often state how we're all about protecting the most vulnerable, and I think this report's a really good example of that. For all the reasons that Councillor Knowles outlined, it should be really beneficial. I like the sound of the person-centred approach, personalised provision, and so on. So I'm again fully supportive of this report.
Excellent, thank you. Very positive comments. And I think from me, you know, we talk often about outcomes. What's clear is that this whole paper is centred on personalisation, flexibility, but delivering good outcomes for people. And Councillor McLaughlin's comments about those case studies are absolutely right. You know, what we should be about is protecting vulnerable people, supporting them and enabling them to live fulfilled lives. And you know, I'm absolutely confident this DPS will help us deliver that in a more appropriate way. OK, I think everyone's had a chance to comment. Do I have a seconder for this report?
I'll second it, Chair.
OK, thank you. It's been seconded by Councillor Guthrie, in which case we'll move to the vote in the normal way. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie,
4.
Councillor Higgins,
4.
Councillor Jennings,
4.
Councillor Knowles,
4.
Councillor McLaughlin,
4.
Councillor Mitchell,
4.
Councillor Mundry,
4.
Councillor Patel. Is he back? Doesn't look like it. OK, Councillor Smith.
4.
OK, thank you, colleagues. That was unanimous. Moving on then to item 7. Councillor Mitchell, please. COVID-19 procurement arrangements.
Thanks, Chair. This is the regular report that's about contracts which have been awarded under the government's emergency provisions, which have been brought on as a result of the pandemic. The emergency law means that some of the formalities of the council making contracts were taken away. And what I want to focus on in this report is the actions that were taken with regard to social distancing and traffic management measures in relation to COVID-19. So in relation to the pandemic, social distancing measures were put in place in areas in Warrington which have an unusually high footfall to reduce the potential for contact between members of the public. Obviously, COVID's increased the number of people walking and cycling and trying to exercise, and it's reduced the number of private car journeys. So some of the measures that were taken include footway widening, so using temporary barriers to make wider pathways, clearing vegetation alongside pavements, also segregated cycle corridors, so using temporary barriers, increasing priority at signal control crossings, and there's been a borough-wide review of green time for pedestrians as well, so the car owner doesn't always get priority. Greenway route improvements as well, removal of access barriers to parks, vegetation clearance next to paths. And then there's been traffic management measures, creating low and slow traffic neighbourhoods and at key district centres and town centre, etc. And also secure cycle parking, which is important with more people using the bikes. The actions, the contracts were made to suppliers who were able to undertake the work promptly. And if you look at paragraph 4.1.3 of the report, you'll see set out the different companies that were involved, the nature of what they were going to do and the value of the contract. Chair, the legal considerations are all set out in full at paragraph 5 in the report. I've gone through those before, so I don't intend to go through them today. And I'll move, Chair, the recommendation, which is at paragraph 12 in the report. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mitchell. As you said, we've done this a few times before now. This is a standing item on Cabinet, so I don't think we need to go through the process or the legal considerations relating to it. I'm not sure if anybody has any comments or questions. I'll come through the list. Councillor Guthrie?
Not at this time.
Councillor Higgins?
Nothing from me, Chair.
Councillor Jennings?
No.
Councillor Knowles?
No, thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mundry?
No comments this time, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Patel?
No comments, thank you.
Councillor Smith?
No, thank you.
Okay, no comments or questions. Do we have a seconder for this report?
Happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Knowles, thank you. Moving to the vote then. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie?
4.
Councillor Higgins?
4.
Councillor Jennings?
4.
Councillor Knowles?
4.
Councillor McLaughlin?
4.
Councillor Mitchell?
4.
Councillor Mundry?
4.
Councillor Patel?
4.
And Councillor Smith?
4.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. Agenda item 8, direct award of a collaboration agreement for the provision of a Warrington Home Improvement Agency. Councillor Knowles, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of sort of preliminary comments here. I think it's something to be really proud of that this is another report and that describes some work that we do collaboratively with our third sector organisations in Warrington, who are such an important part of the wraparound provision of health and social care work in the town, and it's a principle that we really adopt, that we do work in good and collaborative ways with our third sector. So that this is to approve the direct award of a collaboration agreement to Warrington Housing Association for the provision of the Warrington Home Improvement Agency from the beginning of December for a period of 3 years, with an option to extend by 2 further 12-month periods, so that the overall maximum duration would be 5 years. The Housing Association has been commissioned by the Council to provide the Home Improvement Agency since 2007, so this has been a long-standing arrangement, originally through a formal contract and then through a collaboration agreement since 2016. And Cabinet approved the collaborative agreement back in 2016, and at that stage there was a contract waiver that was approved to directly award that to the Housing Association. The current collaboration agreement expires at the end of this November, and the report requests approval to issue a new collaboration agreement. The service that's provided, it's a small but very important service to people in Warrington, because it contributes directly to the wider determinants of health of people in the town, and it ensures that local people are able to live independently in fit, warm, safe homes. And what we're all about here is enabling people to be independent, but also to have a decent quality of life in their homes. It reduces the demand for health and social care services by enabling people to help themselves through the provision of aids, early identification of minor works that they might need or home adaptations, including ones through disabled facilities grants. And they also, and this is really important, provide a targeted advice and information service to ensure that people know how best to access other help and support that will enable them to live more positive and more pleasurable and safer lives out in the community. And it feeds very much into some of the core values of the council, which are about protecting the most vulnerable, growing the local economy, building a strong, active and resilient community for everyone who lives here, and creating somewhere to be proud of. You can only do that if you're supporting citizens to live the best lives they can in the town. This is for older people in the town. Eligibility is for people who are 60 years or older, or people who have a disability or a long-term health condition or frailty. So some of the most vulnerable people in the town. And the Home Improvement Agency provides a coordinated service through a team of caseworkers who provide the advice and support, as well as the handy persons who actually do the practical work. 4.7 details the types of jobs and the number of jobs that are done. There's a large number of small interventions that make a big difference, and I think that's the key to this whole area of work. So the council considered a number of different options related to the Home Improvement Agency, but in actual fact, when it came down to it, there was a relative lack of interest from the market, and actually a reduced price proposed by Warrington Housing Association, and that indicated that a renegotiated collaboration agreement would be the best way to go, because it delivers both a financial saving and retains all the advantages of that existing and really constructive collaboration agreement that already exists. So since the conclusion of the market test, there's been further negotiation between Warrington Housing Association and the council on the details of the form and the budget for the new arrangement. So in terms of risk assessment, this is really you'd have to say is a low risk. There's more of a risk of not doing this because of the capacity that there is to improve things and make things safer for the people who receive this service. There's been consultation with both Warrington Housing Association and the council to ensure that the objectives will be met, and there's also been some service user feedback which is reviewed on an ongoing basis to make sure that the service will meet the needs of people. So the recommendation is to approve the direct award and to approve the commencement of the new award at the beginning of December, with an initial 3-year period and then 2 further potential options to extend for a period of a year. And that's about it. So thank you. And any questions?
OK, thank you for that, Councillor Knowles. I'll come through members in turn then and see if they've got any comments or questions. Councillor Guthrie?
No, thank you.
Councillor Higgins?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, obviously, I commend this report and its positive words. A simple adaptation, such as a step or a grab rail, enables someone with a disability, a debilitating disability, such as Parkinson's disease, to live a more safer and independent life. Now, my partner Ken, as many of you know, is now able to get into the garden safely and to enjoy something that we all take for granted, just with a simple step and a simple grab rail. So these small adaptations do make a huge difference. To some people, it's just a step and a grab rail, and we all use steps and we all see grab rails, but giving people with a disability that option opens their doors.
Thank you for that. Who've got next, Councillor? I must be on to Councillor Jennings next, I think. Comments or questions?
No comments or questions, but just to commend the report.
OK, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin? Have we lost Councillor McLaughlin? We seem to be struggling tonight with IT, don't we? OK, I move on to Councillor Mitchell.
No comments, thank you.
Councillor Mundry.
Just demonstrating again that the Warrington Borough Council looks after its vulnerable residents and improves their lives. So I think it's a good report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patel.
No comment, thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, building on a few of those comments, and I'm sure Councillor McLaughlin would have emphasised this if she was still with us. The point has been made about relatively simple adaptations, and the key piece here really is that these enable people to stay in their own homes, and we know that that's a really important factor for people in terms of their overall health and well-being, you know, and mental health in particular. Being able to stay in your home where you're comfortable, you know, with suitable adaptations which are relatively cheap and easy to implement. You know, they're really important in terms of keeping people out of residential care and in their own homes, and that's absolutely vital for their independence and future well-being and health. So I absolutely agree. It's an excellent report.
If I could just come back myself.
Oh, you can do.
Just very, very briefly, without sort of labouring the point too much. I mean, obviously I've got a physical disability myself, and at times I have benefited from things like additional grab rails, and it's not just the sort of practical difference that these things make, it's the difference to dignity that's actually really important, and we perhaps can't quantify that in financial terms in the same way. But I think when people feel enabled to live their own lives in the ways of their own choosing because they can just simply get around, it makes a huge difference. And it's really excellent to have a service that is there and is sort of speedily available for people, and also that people know where to get the right information and information about who are trusted people to do these installations, because also vulnerable residents can fall prey to scammers and people who don't have their best intentions at heart. So I think there's a safety factor in there as well for people, that they know there are reliable sources of support for them that are local and easily accessible.
No, thank you.
I'm back.
That was an excellent summing up there, Councillor Knowles. Councillor McLaughlin, on agenda item 8, I didn't know whether you, well, I thought you were almost certain to have a comment on this. I did have some comments,
Ken. I can see everybody, I can hear everybody. I can't type in the chat, so I wasn't able to reply to anyone, but I'm here now. And what I really wanted to say was that in my role with housing, I've been able to go out with Warrington Housing Association and go and look at some of the adapted properties that they've worked on, and to see the difference and actually meet some of the residents who have benefited from this approach. And as Councillor Higgins said, what a difference a small adaptation can make. And that's all about what we've continuously talked about in housing and in adult social care. We work quite closely, hand in hand, about helping people to live independently as much as possible. And that's been a passion of mine since I started on the council. If you've ever suffered from a disabling illness or condition, you'll know how difficult it is to suddenly become trapped in your own home. And this is all about allowing people to get their confidence back, to get their sense of independence back, and in doing so, to get their sense of self-worth back. So it's a very important service, and I'm very happy to support the proposal.
Thank you. Are you seconding the report, Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving to the vote then. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie?
4.
Councillor Higgins?
4.
Councillor Jennings? 4. Councillor Knowles?
4.
Councillor McLaughlin?
4.
Councillor Mitchell?
4.
Councillor Mundry?
4.
Councillor Patel?
4.
And Councillor Smith?
4.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 9, Times Square Development B. This is a report from myself in terms of leading on Times Square and our regeneration of the town centre, or at least prior to last Monday. In terms of Times Square, members will be familiar with the importance of this particular scheme for our town. When we took over administration of the council in 2011, under previous leader Terry O'Neill, we had a very strong commitment to Times Square as a driver for regeneration of Warrington Town Centre, and it figured very strongly in the Warrington Means Business programme. We recognised that it was a key driver in terms of not just physical regeneration, but in terms of providing investment and providing economic strength to Warrington and some vitality really into the southern section of the town centre, particularly, for example, around the Bridge Street and Bottom Market Street areas. What we wanted to do was change the perception of Warrington, have less of a domination of vertical drinking, but actually make it a more family-friendly venue and destination for people in terms of their leisure time. And it's a critical part of our city centre master plan and our strategy for redevelopment of the town as a whole. Obviously, we've seen development completed. We've seen the opening of the initial units in terms of the Cineworld, the letting of restaurants, and obviously the occupation of our new market, which has been absolutely groundbreaking, leading market development in the northwest, and I think it's changed the perception of our own residents about what Warrington Town Centre can be about, but has also been an attractive draw for people coming from the neighbouring area. We've worked strongly with our development partner, Muse, in terms of generating interest in the Times Square scheme and obviously getting to a position of letting the various units. What we've seen throughout COVID is a relative slowing down and reappraisal, I think, of the restaurant and casual dining market, some realignment of operators, but even still, we've seen significant interest continue over recent months, despite what's going on nationally and globally with COVID. Through Warrington & Co and through Muse, we continue to very actively market Times Square, and I think it's reassuring that we're coming forward with lease opportunities such as this one and the item that follows. This particular report concerns Unit 2 on Dolmans Lane for Times Square. It's a family-orientated restaurant offer that promises to deliver 30 to 40 new jobs for the Times Square scheme, and that's over and above jobs that are secured through the actual fit out and installation of that property. As I said, a key element for us has always been about improving our town centre leisure offer, and this opportunity offers quality and choice. It is a local offer for Warrington. It's not just about chains and identikit town centres, but actually getting quality leases in place for quality offers that are going to draw people into our town centre, and that's absolutely crucial for the future success of Times Square. There is a Part 2 report, which I'll cover in the Part 2 agenda. So I think this is good news for Warrington. It's good news for Times Square, and I think it's strong validation of our approach and commitment to the whole Times Square offer as really the kind of keystone for reinventing and regenerating Warrington as a town centre. So I'll move to the recommendations as set out in section 12 and recommend those to colleagues. Do we have any comments or questions on this item? I'll come to everybody in turn. Councillor Guthrie.
Yeah, just to say it's great news for the town as a whole to see the offer of Times Square being extended. We've seen how the Botanist has been really successful, and the new market in the sort of restaurant sort of bit of the market. And it's good to see a more varied approach to Times Square happening, and I look forward to seeing it grow even more, because it'll be a much better offer for the town and much better in terms of trying to attract families into the town centre. So yes, great news. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Higgins?
Nothing from me, Chair, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jennings?
Nothing from me, Chair, other than to say it's fantastic to see it coming into fruition.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Knowles?
Sorry, lost me a little bit. Just to say that it's, yeah, fantastic, and it's about creating a real sort of sense of belonging, isn't it? I think if people are using the town centre, it really makes them feel like it's their place, there for them to enjoy.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you. No comments apart from that. I'm really looking forward to coming back into Times Square and experiencing that offer that is going to be so good for so many residents. And once we get through this pandemic, it will be fantastic for everyone to enjoy and take part in.
Thank you. Agreed with your optimism. Councillor Mitchell?
No, Chair, it's fantastic news, but no other comments from me, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Mundry?
Yeah, I think echo what everyone's had to say. It's a good report, good piece of work. I think we're creating a legacy for the town and a town centre everyone will be proud of.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Patel?
No comment, thank you.
Councillor Smith?
No comment, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for this report?
I'm happy to second it.
Sorry, I don't know who that was. Who was that? Councillor Jennings. Oh, I can't see you. Right, Councillor Jennings. Right, thank you. So that's been seconded then. Moving to the vote. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie.
4.
Councillor Higgins.
4.
Councillor Jennings.
4.
Councillor Knowles.
4.
Councillor McLaughlin.
4.
Councillor Mitchell.
4.
Councillor Mundry.
4.
Councillor Patel.
4.
And Councillor Smith.
4.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10 then, Times Square Development C. So this is me again. I don't propose to repeat everything I've said in the previous item regarding obviously the Times Square scheme, its central role to Warrington Meads business, to our town centre master plan, etc. This particular offer is for Unit 3 at Times Square. Again, it's a local business. They currently own and operate premises in Stockton Heath. We consider it as a high quality offer which is complementary to the aspirations that we have for Times Square. And again, as like the other scheme, it has the potential to offer between 25 and 30 new jobs over and above those which will be in the supply chain and through the fit out process. I don't propose to say anything more. Obviously, I'll cover the details in the part 2 item. So I'll move to the recommendations as set out in section 12. Rather than go through everyone in turn, I'll just take comments if people have any. And if nobody raises anything, then I'll seek a seconder for the report. Okay, silence. Councillor Jennings, are you wanting to second this item as well?
Happy to, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. In which case we move to the vote. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie.
4.
Councillor Higgins.
4.
Councillor Jennings.
4.
Councillor Knowles.
4.
Councillor McLaughlin.
4.
Councillor Mitchell.
4.
Councillor Mundry.
4.
Councillor Patel.
4.
And Councillor Smith.
4.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous as well. Moving on then to agenda item 11, authority to award contracts as a result of novation and award contracts that are open-ended. Councillor Knowles again, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to make heavy weather of this report. It's about the request from a number of organisations to novate to other organisations within their groups. It's really not of any huge consequence with regard to the service users of the services, but it will be of benefit to the various organisations in terms of their ability to deal with VAT and secure sort of business efficiencies. So in that sense, it's of benefit in a kind of roundabout way, I guess, to the people who use the services, because it helps with the resilience of those organisations. You'll see in 3.1 the organisations are set out that are the ones who've put these requests forward, and they all relate either to residential or nursing care, or to the integrated drugs and alcohol service, and which is in the community and in the prisons at Risley and Thorne Cross. Catalyst Choices and Keys Group are also requesting these changes in relation to residential intermediate care for adults and residential placements for children, and they've retrospectively approached to request for their current contracts to be novated to alternative companies. So the organisations have formally requested the approval of the council, and there will be, as I said, no operational or financial impact for the council, but it will allow the relevant organisations to create these business efficiencies by restructuring and generating potential cost efficiencies through the recovery of VAT. The requested novations are considered to be low risk from the council's point of view, and the appropriate due diligence will be undertaken prior to the novations taking place. The individual open-ended placements commissioned under the council's existing contracts will be subject to normal established care management, financial authorisation and commissioning activities in the usual way. So the reasons for the recommendation are in connection with the requests that have been made. They mean that service users won't experience any difference in the services that they currently receive. It'll ensure continued service delivery in line with the council's contract and provide for that sustainability of the providers through the efficiencies that they'll be able to generate. We're also recommended to delegate to allow the director of the relevant service, whether that is the director of law and governance, the director of corporate or the director of corporate services, to authorise the routine and administrative novations. And so we're recommended to approve and to delegate those authorities. And other than that, it's very straightforward, I think.
OK, thank you very much for that. Come through members in turn, see if there's any comments or questions. Councillor Guthrie?
No, thank you.
Councillor Higgins?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jennings?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor McLaughlin?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mitchell?
No, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Mundry?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Patel?
No, thank you.
Councillor Smith?
No, thank you.
OK, thank you very much. I agree with you, Councillor Knowles. It's obviously a useful simplification of process through novation and open-ended contracts, and obviously if it supports those care providers, that makes them, as you said, more resilient and able to continue offering care and continuity for their service users. So in that sense, it's clearly a good report. Do we have a seconder for this item?
Yeah, I'm happy to second it.
OK, that's Councillor Smith, in which case we'll proceed to the vote. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie?
4.
Councillor Higgins?
4.
Councillor Jennings?
4.
Councillor Knowles?
4.
Councillor McLaughlin?
4.
Councillor Mitchell?
4.
Councillor Mundry?
4.
Councillor Patel?
4.
And Councillor Smith?
4.
OK, thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. Agenda item 12, Leisure, Libraries, Culture and Heritage Services. So this is a joint report by Councillors Higgins and McLaughlin. If I come to Councillor Higgins first, and then Councillor McLaughlin, then I'll ask Councillor Higgins then to move the recommendation. So Councillor Higgins first, please. Thank you, Chair.
Right, well, I present this report in the context of the COVID pandemic and the significant impact it's having on our leisure and library services, managed on both behalf of Livewire CIC and in partnership with my colleague Councillor Maureen McLaughlin, the impact on culture, arts and heritage, managed by Culture Warrington. Now, once again, we find ourselves in a period of national lockdown with all our leisure, library, culture and heritage services closed, except for online or click and collect provisions. Now, both organisations have seen a significant reduction in income, especially Livewire, that's seen a 60 to 70% drop. Now, this has had a devastating impact on the finances of the organisation. This puts both services and jobs at risk, and the recommendations set out in this risk report and the further recommendations which are set out in part 2, which I will present later along with Councillor McLaughlin, are intended to help stabilise these services as much as we are able to do so by ensuring a strong foundation on which to deliver a realistic and sustainable long-term recovery plan. Now, I'm sure Councillor McLaughlin will support me when I say that both Livewire and Culture Warrington have done all they can to make savings and to seek all government assistance that they were eligible for, including any funding opportunities. Now, both boards have acted diligently in their duties, and I commend board members and staff for their hard work over the recent months. Now, unfortunately, for leisure services in particular, there has been a lack of forthcoming support from the government. The government has agreed to support local authority leisure services that are managed in-house through the Local Government Income Compensation Scheme for lost sales, fees and charges. Now, after absorbing losses of up to 5% of their planned 2021 sales income, those areas are able to claim back 75% of lost income. However, to date, there is no such scheme for local authority leisure services that are delivered by organisations such as Livewire, and it's vital that the government brings some equity to their approach in supporting local authority services, leisure services such as ours. If we do not act urgently and act to support Livewire in the delivery of a sustainable recovery plan, then there is a very high risk that they will be unable to continue to trade. This puts our leisure centres and libraries at great risk. Key to the sustainable recovery plan is the continuation of the existing management agreement beyond 2022. This will provide the time needed for the leisure and culture markets to stabilise as we hopefully start to emerge from this pandemic. It provides assurances to providers of gym equipment and the utilities and all the infrastructure needed to keep services and buildings running while this longer term plan is in place. And as the report highlights, we have considered the range of options available to us. As in the report states at 8.2, this is intended as the least worst option. It does not eliminate the risk to services, but it will minimise them as much as we are currently able to. Now, it's because of this and the further details set out in the report that I recommend to Cabinet to permit the management agreement with Livewire CIC for leisure and library services to continue for a period of 5 years, starting from May 2022. And I know that Councillor McLaughlin will be making her comments to this report, but again, I will say that to permit the management agreement with Culture Warrington. Now, the lifestyle services as a whole is a wholly public health grant funded service, and it is not subject to the same circumstances and the agreements as the other services listed, and it is therefore recommended that we give notice to remove the lifestyle element of the management agreement with Livewire, allowing this for a separation of contract. I would also like to add further recommendations not currently listed in the main report, but circulated prior to the meeting. And it's really important that we continue to closely monitor the ongoing situation with both Livewire and Culture Warrington, again, which my colleague Councillor McLaughlin will be making comment on. So I would like to add the following recommendation to delegate the undertaking of an annual review of Livewire and Culture Warrington recovery plan to the Director of Growth in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Leisure and Community Livewire Recovery Plan and the Cabinet Member for Housing, Public Health and Wellbeing Culture Warrington Recovery Plan and the Deputy Chief Executive and Director for Corporate Services. Now, this additional recommendation is extremely important, especially under such challenging times. It will allow us to keep a constant finger on the pulse to ensure they perform to the recovery plan. Now, there is a part 2 section to this, so I think it's right that I should hand over at this point to my colleague Councillor McLaughlin to make her comments to this report, and then she can add further details in part 2 and the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Yes, a very comprehensive introduction to this report. We know, and I know in my role for public health and well-being, how important our culture and leisure services are to the health and well-being of so many of our residents in the town, whether that's through visiting a library, taking part in fitness activities, taking part in a creative class, event or activity, finding out about their local history, or going to a show. All these things can help us have a good sense of well-being and self-esteem, and as well to improve our health. And we know, as Councillor Higgins has outlined, these are very difficult times we could not have foreseen this time last year for our culture and leisure providers, and for all culture and leisure providers across the country. But I do take the point that in our circumstances, we have missed out on government support, and we would want our MPs to be speaking up for that, and especially our MP who's connected with the Tory government to really speak up on our behalf to get those payments that other councils have been able to get for their leisure providers. The recommendations enable Livewire and Culture Warrington to have some breathing space that they need in order to restructure and redesign the service, having had that problem and the extreme difficulties that they faced with the pandemic, because we need to hold on to these services. They are vital for our town, and we need to do everything we can to support them. So this is a breathing space. We are standing by our forward-thinking organisations. In different circumstances, we might be looking at other ways of doing this, but this is really the only option for us here to make sure our services can continue. And they have done so much to deliver in a new and innovative way. And as an observer to the Culture Warrington Board, I've seen firsthand how so much has been adapted to allow for a more digital approach to culture that's really benefited residents. So I'm very happy to second this report and put forward these recommendations.
Okay, thank you to you for that, Councillor McLaughlin. I'm going to come back to you then, Councillor Higgins, so you can formally move those recommendations in section 12.
No, there's nothing further to add to me. I think it's really important that people, for the public part of the meeting, in part 1, that they're very clear about the recommendations and the 3 recommendations in the report and the additional recommendation which we had distributed. So if everyone's clear on that, I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Okay, fine, thank you. I think what we'll do, I note that Councillor McLaughlin has seconded it, but obviously need to give members the opportunity for discussion and debate. So Councillor Guthrie, any comments or questions?
She's not present during this part of the meeting, Chair.
Oh, of course she isn't. Oh yeah, good spot. Thank you for that. Oh. Councillor Jennings.
None, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Knowles.
Just a brief observation. Actually, I think we should be proud that we've still got these services to look to the future for, because there are parts of the country where they've just slashed through their leisure and culture services, and once they've gone, they're hard to get back. I think we need to be optimistic about the future and kind of keep the faith. it is going to be quite complicated ensuring that the recovery of the services goes forward, because they have had severe challenge, but we can make sure that there is a meaningful and decent leisure and culture offer for Warrington for the future, and that's obviously everybody's aspiration, but something that this report enables us to look towards.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Mitchell.
Nothing from me, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Mundry.
No problems for me, Chair.
Councillor Patel.
No comment, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Smith, I don't know whether you want to add any comment. I think you did declare your interest before, but we'll participate.
Yeah. No comment, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you to both Councillor Higgins and Councillor McLaughlin for their presentation. And clearly, we all know that we're in quite extraordinary times with the COVID crisis. It's obvious that the hospitality and leisure sector have borne the brunt of lockdown. They've borne the brunt of enhanced restrictions with the tiered arrangements, etc. And, you know, the government, I think, has made them a soft target because they're insistent on keeping workplaces open and keeping young people in education. That said, the financial impact on both organisations has been considerable over recent months. We need to continue putting the pressure on the government to provide adequate funding for outsourced organisations such as this. And in a sense, it's a bit ironic, isn't it, that, you know, having done a soft outsourcing of our leisure and cultural services, you would think that would be something that got the support of government, and it clearly seems to be working the opposite way. We recognise that impact, and we have to do what we can to protect those services for the people of Warrington. I think the options appraisal has clearly looked at what we can do in the very short term. We need to give them assurance about their business, the ability to enter into lease arrangements for example, for gym equipment, etc. And obviously confidence to the workforce, but also the members of the board of both organisations, you know, that they are viable business that we genuinely value. I very much appreciate the additional recommendation that's been made. I think it's absolutely vital that as a cabinet, through the guidance of our cabinet members that are responsible for those two companies, that we agree that recovery plan with both organisations, and that we continually monitor and review their performance against that recovery plan. And that's why I absolutely support the introduction of an annual review process. It gives us clarity about how they're performing, but obviously ensures that we can maintain two viable companies, and in the meantime look at those other options and having a plan B if indeed things don't progress well over the coming years. I think the timeframe set out should be sufficient for those organisations to demonstrate that they're meeting that recovery plan, and obviously to turn their situation around, and it's giving them that breathing space to continue operating and to continue providing those valuable services that we know the residents of Warrington value and need. So it's been moved and seconded. On that basis, I'll move to the vote. Councillor Bowden, for. Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Jennings.
For.
Councillor Knowles.
For.
Councillor McLaughlin.
For.
Councillor Mitchell.
For.
Councillor Mundry.
For.
Councillor Patel.
For.
And Councillor Smith. Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. If somebody can advise Councillor Guthrie, you can step back into the room. As agreed at the start, agenda item 13 is not being considered tonight, so move on to agenda item 14, housing investment. Councillor Mitchell, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report is seeking Cabinet approval to enter into a loan facility to a provider of social housing. The loan is fully secured on property and it's for a 5-year term with an option to extend. The aim of this is to provide an income to the council in order to help us to maintain services which are important to the people of Warrington. It will also help to provide affordable housing. Chair, we're still waiting for the government to refund the £20 million of COVID costs that we've already paid out. We're already one of the most poorly funded councils in the country. We're doing everything in our power to avoid cuts to children's services and to adult social care, as they take up most of our budget. The costs that we've spent during COVID come to £36 million, and to date the government have paid back 15 million, and they've given us no indication when or if we'll receive the rest. Our investments that we do generate at least £20 million of net income for the council, and that's after all of the costs have been taken out, and that's what helps us to keep services going. It's still not enough. And our investments, just like this one, usually have an asset attached to them, just like your house is linked to your mortgage. Our assets exceed the debt that we have, which is obviously really important. In fact, the value of the assets has increased during COVID. To pay for the services that we need, that people need and rely on and value, we need income. We can't use capital. So if we went about and sold these assets, that wouldn't help us at all to provide for the loss of income that we'd get. We'd get money that we can't use for services, and we'd lose the income that that asset provides to the council. So what I'd really challenge politicians in the town who say that the council's doing these crazy investments. None of our investments have failed. If so, why would we keep hold of them? And what would they do? What would they cut? Because we're already looking at cuts going forward, regardless of the income that we get from these investments. So where would the extra 20 million be found? Would it be in children's services or would it be in adult social care? And it's a very easy thing to criticise, but let's have some constructive solutions from the politicians that choose to do that. So having said all that, Chair, the recommendations at paragraph 10 in the report, there is a part 2, and I'll move that recommendation and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell, and thanks for reminding us all once again about the reality of local government finance. You know, we've adopted a creative and innovative approach, and you know, people that either need to accept that or put forward a credible solution. I'll come through members then in turn with any comments or questions. Councillor Guthrie?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Higgins?
Nothing, Chair.
Councillor Jennings?
Nothing from me, Chair.
Councillor Knowles?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Nothing from me, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mundry?
Nothing from me, Chair.
Councillor Patel?
No comment, thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just a comment really from me, thank you. Councillor Mitchell said that the aim of this is to provide income to the council to provide services, and ultimately what we do in the council is about people and the people of Warrington. In my portfolio, that often means ensuring that children are safe, that they get the best opportunities to achieve in life. And some of the services that the council provide are statutory ones, they're the must-dos, and some of them are discretionary, the things that we'd like to do. Councillor Mitchell's spoken before about the savage cuts that we've faced in the council since 2010, and we're at a point now where the size of those cuts is greater than the remaining budget. And if we just accept those cuts as they are, then that would leave large holes in the budget, and we'd struggle to provide even the must-dos, let alone the things we would like to do. The like-tos are really critical parts of our strategy. Things like the Families First service that looks after children on the edge of care, prevents more children going into care, which obviously gives them the best possible outcomes and as a side effect also saves us money. We wouldn't be able to provide those absolutely essential services that are not the must-dos, that are the like-to things that really make huge differences in people's lives. We wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for investments like this and some of the others that we've done in recent months. So I'd just like to, well, obviously support this one. That was a more general comment, I think, about the investments that we make. Thank you.
No, absolutely excellent contribution there, Councillor Smith. So thank you for that. You basically took away what I was going to say at the end. So thank you. Are you seconding this report? Yeah,
more than happy to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In which case we'll move to the vote then, colleagues. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie,
4.
Councillor Higgins,
4.
Councillor Jennings,
4.
Councillor Knowles,
4.
Councillor McLaughlin,
4.
Councillor Mitchell,
4.
Councillor Mundry,
4.
Councillor Patel, and Councillor Smith.
4.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. And that concludes our part 1 agenda. So if you've been watching online, many thanks for your time. I hope you found it interesting. That ends our public broadcast and we'll now move on to our part 2 agenda. Thank you and good night.